All right, all right. What's up, everybody? It's your boy Tate Dezay, host of Mr. Big Head Reads, and we are here today with our finale for Brother Breathe series, and I am super excited to be able to do this live show with you all, and we are super excited to also share and be in community with our guest on today. Um, and I want to just really quickly start with a stat that says nearly 1 in 5 adults in the US live with a mental illness. Y'all, that's more than 50 million people carrying stories, struggles, and silent battles that we may never see. But what happens when someone chooses to not only heal themselves, but dedicate their life to helping others do the same? So, this week's episode on Brother Breathe, we are here to make space, to pause, to reflect, and to breathe deeply into the truths that shape our mental and emotional and spiritual well being. And so, today's guest is a great force in that healing journey. I'm super excited to welcome Deshaun, a nationally certified psychotherapist and owner of Safe Haven Therapy. He brings more than just a clinical expertise. He brings his heart, his lived experience, and his passion for helping others navigating anxiety, depression, PTSD, addiction, and much more. But his impact stretches far beyond the therapy room. Whether on stages and studios or one-on-one sessions or even podcast sessions like this, Deshaun uses his voice to spark awareness and compassion around mental health, especially in communities where silence has been the norm for far too long. So welcome, 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 my brother Deshaun Harris. How are you feeling today? How are you? What's your heart and spirit saying right now?
Thank you. I'm feeling amazing despite the rain, but that
Yeah.
was an amazing intro. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And share with us where are you located, where are you coming from?
I'm located in Baltimore, Maryland, where I practice here
Okay.
in Maryland. Also soon to be practicing. Well, I practice now in Georgia, but we're soon to be expanding in Georgia, which we'll get into a little later. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's really a pleasure and an honor to have you kind of end out this session. We've been having guest after guest every Wednesday in the month of May. May,
Mhm.
of course, as you know, is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so for you, what does this month mean for you as a mental health psychotherapist?
For me, it's a moment to highlight mental health. And what I mean by highlight it is actually take a chance and take a moment to talk about it, because
Mm.
we don't talk about it enough. It's not talked about enough, and I think there's still that stigma behind it, and it's still so taboo to even have a simple conversation around it. So I think it's definitely a moment to highlight the struggles that people are actually dealing with and the reality of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, we are live. So, y'all who are watching, if you see some little hiccups, just bear with us. We are excited to be live, but also if you have any questions, if you have any concerns or just anything you want to add, just please be sure to drop those questions in the chat. But moving on, also, if you are here, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video and this podcast with a friend, with a brother, with a niece, whomever you think might need to hear this conversation. Now, of course, Deshaun, Mr. Big Head Reads is a podcast that explores literacy, and we highlight and elevate the
Yes.
voices that are unknown and known in terms of books and authors and things like that. So I
Mhm.
must ask you, what is one of your favorite childhood books and why?
Oh, I think I would say the Harry Potter series, J.K.
Oh,
Rowling's. I mean,
okay, that's
why
new.
not? It's Harry Potter. I say the Harry Potter series mostly because, it was even the movies. Just how we always say, well, we always used to say the movies don't do the books justice. So I
Mhm.
think just to be able to use your imagination, and the book really takes you there. It takes you to a different place in your imagination, and then to see the movie bring it to life a little bit. So I would say that J.K. Rowling.
Now you was reading this as a kid?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So your parents is a little liberal, huh?
I wouldn't say that. I think that was a choice of my own.
Oh, got you, got you, got you. Okay. See, I grew up in a holiness house, so we weren't reading none of that Harry Potter. But I
Yeah,
love that. I love to hear and see Black men, especially right, reading and exploring different genres that other people wouldn't think that we would enjoy. So that's
absolutely.
pretty cool.
I
Um,
I
Go
was gonna
ahead.
say I ain't gonna tell you I was reading the Carl Weber books as well, but
Oh, okay. Now I remember those used to be circulating in the high school when I was like, oh, okay, this is
yeah, I shouldn't have been,
again
but
right. Nothing that we should have been exposed to at such a young age. But
exactly.
name a book that you can always read over and over again.
Ooh, I would say there's one that I'm currently well, I haven't. I'm about to start, but I've read like different excerpts from it from Instagram, and I think from what I've seen, I think I could read that over and over again because it's really captivating
Mhm.
and it's helpful. Gosh, what is the name of it? It's Mel Gibson. Is it Mel Gibson? I believe. Hold on, I'm about to tell you in
Oh, Mel
one.
Robbins, Let
Yes,
Them
Mel
Theory.
Robbins. Where did I get Mel?
Yes,
Yes, Mel Gibson from.
yes,
Yeah, it's Let Them Theory. Yes. So
yes.
I see a lot of I watch some clips from her podcast and I see some excerpts from her book and the way she sells it and the things that she promotes and the things that she talks about in the book. And I actually just ordered the book from Amazon, so I'm going to start it soon. But I do feel
Mhm.
like that's something that I'll always revert back to for different life
Mm.
advice. Let them
Yeah, I
there.
think that that's I especially as a therapist, I'm sure you can agree that it's also a great tool to use for
Oh,
those who might be facing anxiety or control or this sense of like control and this need to be in the know all the time or
some
when it comes to other folks. And my best friend Jason actually introduced the book to me. And so he got me together one day. He was like, let them, just let them. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you? I thought he was trying to quote a scripture, but he was like, no, the book is about let them theory. And he broke it down to me. And I was like, oh, wow. So I ended up downloading it as an Audible. And I was like, wow, like,
it's amazing, isn't it?
yeah,
I was actually
he's doing
I
some great
was
work.
Yeah, I was having a meeting with Bishop Allen in Atlanta one day, and he suggested it, and I'm like, "Why?" I'm thinking to myself, like, "Huh, I've heard of that book.
Mhm.
I've seen the clips. I've watched some of our podcasts. I've seen some clips from our podcast." So he said, "You got to order. You got to get it." So I got it, and I'm ready to dive into it.
That's awesome. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about one of your favorite authors. Like, if you could meet any author, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Oh, good question. I don't know if I have a favorite author, honestly.
Mm,
I like a variety of authors. If I
okay.
could meet one. You know what? And this is gonna sound so crazy because it's so, I guess, modern. This is probably not the answer that you're expecting, but if I could meet one, it would be Tina Knowles.
Okay.
And she's been on her book tour. Um,
Mhm.
but I think a little bit because just to hear some of the stories that we don't actually get to hear about the things
Yeah.
she's experienced, and her, of course, being Beyonce's mama, you know, we don't really hear a lot of the truths. So to
Mm.
actually do that, and I would love to sit down with her and just actually meet her and talk to her about it. And I missed the book tour here. I think she came in DC, but I missed that one. So yeah.
Have you read the book yet?
No, I haven't had time to. I gotta read the Let Them Theory first.
Exactly. Right. But shout out to Mama T and the matriarch. I hear that is doing really
Very
well.
absolutely.
And the book tour really looks like it's been rejuvenating and healing in a lot of ways. Like I know she was in Atlanta and Tyler Perry was the host, I believe, and Leandria Johnson
Yeah,
sung, and it just seemed I'm like, this is church. Like,
yeah,
what is
exactly.
happening, right? But I think that also kind of speaks to the black lived experience when we think about the matriarch, right, in our families. Like, it is truly healing, right, to think about our matriarchs. For some of us, it is even joyful and sometimes sad, right? Because a lot of our matriarchs have gone on. So it's a blessing to see Mama T still pushing and sharing her story because it's needed.
Yeah, and I think,
Yeah.
like you said, a lot of matriarchs have got passed on and they don't get to share their stories, but she is the representation. in that
Right,
sense.
right.
A lot of different matriarchs.
Yeah. So, all of our guests so far throughout this month have contributed in this little game that I like to play with you that is
Okay.
pretty much just called finish that sentence. And so I will start out with a small prompt and you can end however you see fit. It can be
Okay.
comical, reflective, it can be sad or whatever it may be, whatever you find to be helpful. So are you ready?
I am.
Okay. All right. So when I think of God, I think of,
Peace, healing,
all right. When I need to relax, I do.
watch girlfriends.
Gr- Really?
Yes,
Okay.
that is my favorite show of all times.
I
Mara Brock
love that.
hit on her hands with that one.
See, and I like that you mentioned a show because often, no shade to folks who like, oh, I like to meditate and, like to, journal.
It
All those are great. But there is some escape in TV. And I,
is.
when I'm stressed out, my favorite show, and everybody who knows me, is that I'm going to put on either The Jeffersons or 227. Like those are my two favorite shows. And,
Yes.
obviously I love Marla Gibbs. So, but it's so relaxing, right? Like if you find that good show that you can just get lost into. And no matter how many times you watch it, right?
Yes, exactly. And I've seen it so many times. And you know what I love about it? I can recite it word for word.
Same.
I know what's going to happen next. I know what's coming up. I know that I'm going to laugh. And that's probably why it's so comforting, because I have control over it in a sense, because I know what's going to happen.
Exactly.
I don't have to sit
Because
there
you
and
know what's about to happen. You already know exactly.
have
Yep.
to sit there and
Yep.
physically watch it. It could be background noise, but I'm like, I know I'm a laugh,
Right. Exactly.
So
Another one is I wish someone told me this when I was 13.
to trust the process. And what I
Mm,
mean by I say that, and that's always been my advice to myself, my younger self, because trusting the process, if I trust the process, I would have known that a lot of things happen for you, not to you. And me,
mm,
growing up in foster homes and group homes and being an at-risk youth,
mm,
I kind of felt in those moments, we don't think, of course, our brains aren't fully developed in those moments. So we don't think we don't think far beyond that exact moment. We don't think further. So I wish I was someone that would have told me, my 13-year-old self, to trust the process, because here I am today living with this lived experience, able to help others.
hmm Wow, that's
It's a long
that's
sentence,
so
wasn't
deep. No, that's
it?
profound though.
Mhm.
Black men deserve.
Healing.
Mm-hmm.
Black men deserve the healing that, we deserve it.
Mental health is important to me because.
Ooh. Mental health is important to me because it's so many answers I want to say, but so mental health is important to me because so many people battle with it, and it is literally the root cause of a lot of our issues, or a lot of the things
Mm,
that we see, a lot of the, and how we show up in the world, a lot of how a lot of different people show up in the world, because they're battling mental health issues, whether it's severe mental health issues or moderate.
mm. And lastly, I define joy as.
The ability to do the freedom, the ability to get up and do exactly what you want to do in life,
Mm,
that freedom, just that overall comfort and peace.
I love that.
Thank you.
Thank you for contributing to that. And um, I love also just hearing the different responses because everyone has their own definition of joy, or
Yeah.
everyone has their own definition of what mental health is to them. And so, for you as a mental health psychotherapist, you dedicated pretty much your life and your educational pursuits to be a psychotherapist and to have all these credentials behind your name. But what really pushed you outside of the accolades and credentials? What really pushed you to want to devote your life to mental health?
I wanted to be who I needed as a child. And I think now
Mm,
that's who I am, and that's who I'm being, for future children, and, even
mm,
adults as well. But, as I spoke on touch topic on a little bit before, I grew up in as an at-risk youth. I suffered physical abuse, mental abuse, sexual abuse, and I needed someone like myself in that moment, but I didn't have that because back then, mental health, you couldn't really talk about it, especially for us in the
Mm,
Black community. It wasn't normal. Now, if a white person go seek therapy, or if a white person talked about mental health, it was okay. But for us, it was, oh, we go to church or we pray, and that's fine. We do that, but we should couple that with therapy as well, if that's what you prefer. But I do believe that for me, I wanted to be who I needed as a child, as a kid, and
mm.
even as a teenager.
Wow. What I love about this is you are my second guest from this month that is from the Baltimore area and that
Okay.
has experiences with foster care. Can you just
Yeah,
speak a little bit about like just your experiences in that and what are some of the things that us as advocates and maybe even supporters of child advocacy and rights and mental health that we should be aware of?
absolutely. For me, my experience was my mom. To shorten it a bit, my biological mom was on drugs, in and out the prison system. So that led, obviously, that impact your children mostly.
Mm,
So I'll say that impacted me. So I was in and out of different foster homes, different group homes. Um, One foster mom was my very first foster home. She was very abusive, uh, very draining and very toxic. If you Now that I think about it, but very abusive physically, emotionally, and just verbally as well. So then, from her, I went to different group homes, different foster homes, where I had experienced sexual abuse, experienced a lot of different trauma from that experience, from the overall experience. I finally went to, I think when I was 12, yeah, when I was 12, I finally went to my last foster family, which was the best family I've ever experienced. And I always say this, I say, I don't know where I'd be today if I didn't encounter
mm,
them. And they're still my family to this day. Like they are, like, I don't have a relationship with too many of biological family members, but this family is my family, and they've never treated me as anything less than family. And to this day, they still don't treat me as anything less than family. And I mean the entire family, down to aunts, uncles, cousins. That's my family. And
wow.
they gave me the nurture and the love and the family dynamic that I didn't know that I needed. I never had that, never
Mhm.
experienced it, so it was foreign to me. So, but they provided me with that, and they're my family. That's actually my family today. and
Yeah.
and you said, what was the second part of the question was, what advice can I give advocates? You
Mhm.
know, the signs aren't always there, I'll say. For instance, when I was going through physical abuse from my first foster mom, nobody knew. I was just coming to school.
Mm,
Signs aren't always there, but I would say ask questions, ask different questions, ask probing questions. If you do notice something, if you notice a shift in behavior, if you notice a shift in emotional regulation, ask those questions, because
mhm,
the kid isn't always going to say anything. And that
mhm,
don't necessarily have to be abuse, but it could just be anything that they're going through. It could be the biological family, they're experiencing things with that, even, which could cause a drop in their grades or anything. So pay attention to the little things.
mhm,
Those
mhm. Those small behavioral shifts. Yeah, that is important. First off, thank you for sharing your story. Like that's just I love how also you define the family and how you've been able to take something that, was really meant to harm and to cause you um to be having numerous setbacks that you used it as something to propel you to help others, right? And to support, as you and your own words, to be the person that you needed as a kid. Foster care often gets overlooked, it doesn't get talked about as much, but there is a resurgence, if you will, or maybe just a surfacing of foster care in media. And I've been noticing a lot in just even some TV shows. And so and I don't know if it's because I've just been having conversations with folks and it's just now I'm starting to see it or hear it more. Like this
Right.
recent show on Netflix called Sirens. Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it. I haven't watched it yet.
With Julianne Moore. Oh my God, it is so good. But I don't want to tell the story. But
Yeah.
the young girl, Simone, the youngest daughter, was in foster care because her father neglected her and
Hmm.
just was unable to really, provide the care that she needed. Fast forward as an adult, her oldest sister was like, why are you acting like this? Like she had all of these, behavioral issues as an adult. Like, and then she literally sat down and she was like, do you know what happens to kids in foster care? And she just goes into like the emotional and sexual and mental trauma that she went through that caused her to be the certain adult that she was, and
Yeah.
like making the decisions that her attachments to people, and her need of mothering, right, and how she found like this sense of mothering through her supervisor that became toxic. It's so good. And I was like, wow, like, yo, like there's just so much, and I'm just wondering, like, how are these folks able to become parents? Like, what?
Yeah.
No
And,
one's checking this.
they put on a show, they perform really well.
Mm,
And I'm gonna check that show out because I've heard about it once before, but I haven't had time to. But I will definitely say that is so true. There's so much trauma in the foster care system. And I was just watching a clip from someone on Instagram, and I forgot the exact number, but he was saying that foster youth typically deal with a lot of mental health issues, whether it's
mm,
during their time in foster care or as an adult. And you know, that number was a huge number, and I think it was more than regular, your average youth. So it's you'd be surprised at the things that you
yeah.
experience, the things that you witness in foster when growing up in different foster homes, and and then also just being from place to place to place. It's not settling.
Yeah, exactly. Right, right. But shout out, I mean, we are here defying odds because in just this month, I have interviewed two Black men from Baltimore, Maryland, who are defying the odds, who have both been in foster care, who are mental health advocates. One is an author, you are a psychotherapist who founded your own mental health company, the Safe Haven Therapy, which is a
Yes.
Black-owned private therapy practice. So can you talk a little bit about, how did you come about creating this particular company?
Absolutely. So when I became a therapist, almost 4 years ago, I knew that, of course, you got to work, you got to start to get your hours and everything. So you can't just go out on your own. But I knew that I didn't want to work for anyone. And I say that because every method or every company don't do things the way that I would prefer. And
Mm,
also just sometimes working for someone in therapy isn't always the best option for you. I mean, if it works for you, it works for you. But for me, I just knew that I didn't want to work for anyone because I wanted to be able to provide the level of care that I wanted to provide, whereas I didn't have to have anyone over my shoulder telling me I can and can't do this. So, me as a Black-owned private practice, I started Safe Haven 2024. Last year, actually, last January, we launched our Maryland location, and it's been great since. We provide quality care. Since then, I've hired. Well, now we have 3 therapists on board, including myself. So
okay.
my COO, she's amazing, and she works with adults and youth. And then we have our other therapist. She's amazing as well, and she actually licensed in Maryland and DC, so she takes clients from both. So yeah, it's been a journey, but it's been a great journey. We've built partnerships and everything since then. So yeah,
And you said you've only been licensed for 4 years?
yep, almost 4 years.
Wow, that's amazing. Good for you. And I'm just blown away at just like your ambition and just like the desire to really serve like the Black, community and people of color, right? BIPOC communities that
Awesome.
are in need of therapy. So in Safe Haven on your website, you
Mhm.
emphasize like a person-centered and insight oriented approach. Can
Yep.
you elaborate a little bit on that framework and how that benefits, especially those from marginalized identities?
Definitely. Our person-centered and insight-oriented framework is literally the foundation of how Safe Haven supports clients. Um, it's more so in meaningful and lasting ways. From a person-centered approach, we honor each client's unique voice, their pace, and their experience. We also create that safe, non-judgmental space where we allow our clients to feel seen and heard. We also prioritize autonomy, which what I mean by that is we believe the client is the expert of their own life. So,
Mm,
we don't push our beliefs on them. We allow them to develop their own, and we guide them through that. it's a huge benefit for the client because, they feel empowered, they feel in control of their healing, and it builds that trust and that therapeutic relationship naturally as opposed to forcefully. Um,
Right.
Insight oriented work, that approach, we take that approach because where we focus on helping clients gain the clarity and the unconscious about their unconscious patterns, their emotional responses, as well as relational dynamics, and
Ooh.
make sense of how past experiences shape their current
Mm,
thoughts and behaviors, which I think a lot of people should know. A lot of people should. That's something a lot of people should work on. And
mm,
like I said earlier, how we show up today has a lot to do with ourselves. How
mhm.
treats us has a lot to do with their self and their internal work or their internal struggles, their internal battles, and the things that they've experienced that shape them today. Um,
I'm nodding because I'm like, I need to sign up. 'Cause I was like, one of those. Because listen, that unconscious of thoughts and behaviors, like some things I'm just doing, and I'm like, wow, did I say that? Did I show up in this way? Where is this coming from? Like, yeah, and that's good because you're using tools to really kind of uproot some of those, behaviors and what's causing, right, these unconscious thoughts or behaviors that you mentioned. I'm curious to
Absolutely.
also know kind of like what challenges have you encountered in providing therapy services, and how have you addressed them, especially using these type of tools?
For me personally, I will say my biggest challenge has been countertransference. And what that is for me, I experience some of the things that I have experienced or currently am experiencing
Mm,
some of the things that my clients have experienced. And it's hard to, sometimes it's challenging. I'm not going to say it's hard. Sometimes it's challenging to navigate myself as the therapist as opposed to, the clients. I have to maintain that level of professionalism. Um, Even just like with the current election status and everything and that situation,
yeah.
I'm dealing with the same thing. We're all dealing with it, but I'm still showing up for my clients who are dealing with it in other ways. They're struggling from it. They're being directly affected by it. I am as well, but I still show up for my clients. And the way I handle those challenges is in grad school, I learned one thing we learn in grad school when studying counseling is that a little bit of self-disclosure is okay. Not
Okay.
too much, not too much, because you
Mhm.
are still a therapist, so you don't want to put yourself, you don't want to break that professional relationship. But a little bit of self-disclosure is okay. So I'll disclose with my clients just, to allow them to feel that, I'm human as well, and I can relate to you. And, I'm the representation as well. So I might disclose to them something that I've experienced to help with their situation. That way they know, okay, if he did this and he's
Right.
the expert, as a lot of people say, I try not to use that title as much, but he's the expert, then then that gives me hope. That gives me
Yeah.
hope in my situation. So I'll let them know a little bit into my personal stories, or a little bit into give them a little personal insight and how I've overcome certain things. So that could potentially help them.
Yeah. I appreciate that approach as a person on the couch,
Yeah,
sharing. I appreciate that level of transparency that the therapist is open to give, because it lets me know, well, at least I'm not the only one like going
absolutely.
through or thinking this, and if that person, as you mentioned, can overcome, surely I can as well. So I think that that's a really good strategy. It doesn't work for everyone, especially I'm sure, identities come into play, and power dynamics come into play. So I'm sure you have to be very careful with using that particular strategy. But for most times, for me at least, I've only used really black women as therapists. So we just being that kick in. So like,
And sometimes your sessions might just be, every session isn't always heavy. Sometimes your sessions might
yeah,
be a moment of kiki, a moment of laughter, a moment of, just having a general conversation. But sometimes our clients need that.
exactly.
Sometimes we need that, especially with all that's going on. Sometimes our clients, or sometimes as a client, we need just a moment to release. And it doesn't have to
Hmm.
be heavy releasing, but sometimes we just need a moment of, oh, my week was this is what happened. Or I want to let me tell my therapist this. Sometimes clients come in and say, I could not wait to tell you this, I had to write it down, and because you're
Yeah.
gonna laugh. And because we have that rapport, and I know their lives so well. It's something I know is, we gonna laugh about, or it's something that they feel comfortable with sharing with me, and we gonna laugh about it. We gonna talk about it, and sometimes, like you said, it becomes a kiki.
Hmm. What are you noticing happening right now, especially in the area that you're in? You briefly kind of touched on the political climate that we're in, and you're situated in the in Baltimore, adjacent to the DMV area. Because I know there's some Baltimoreans don't like to be associated with DMV. They're like, Baltimore is not DMV." So I'm like, so I like to say adjacent to the DMV. But what are you noticing that is happening with folks' mental health right now, especially with not only just the political climate, but even those who are impacted by the federal government, right? Like those who may be on the verge of losing their jobs or not sure, what the future may hold. I personally moved from Maryland to Atlanta recently. I was impacted by the federal government, and so and I know how that took an emotional toll on me. And so I'm just curious, as a therapist in that area, what are you noticing?
Absolutely. What I've noticed is a lot of people's mental health is declining because of it. One, the uncertainty is causing a high level of anxiety. On top of that, we've already, as a Black culture, we've already had to deal with the systemic oppression and, everything else. So now, to deal with this, I have clients who have been directly affected. I have friends who are being directly affected, or then I know people who may or may not be directly affected, but they don't know, but there's still that uncertainty. So it takes a toll on their mental health. It causes some people to work 10 times harder because they don't know if they are going to
Mhm.
be affected. So it's like, let me prepare now. But then when them working 10 times harder, that leads to burnout, that leads to mental fatigue, emotional fatigue. It's a very emotional time, and it's definitely playing a huge part on a lot of people's mental health. And then
Mhm.
there's the part of people who don't know if they're going to have certain rights, or they're going to have certain what am I can't even think of the word I'm looking for. It's always on the tip of my tongue. Um, Certain things like their Medicaid, or if certain things will
Mhm.
be cut off for them. So it's hard right now. It's hard for everyone, and we're all dealing with it because we're all dealing with the uncertainty. But it's the one thing I've noticed is a mental decline, and that's another thing. People are not going to be able to afford therapy. People are not going to be able to afford the general things that they would typically go out and buy, and let alone healthcare.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And to build on that, for those who may not be able to afford therapy but are dealing with the weight of the world, what are some strategies or tools that folks can use or seek out to combat this mental health decline? And also, this is a twofold. Also, what can people do to really help with post-election
oh,
remorse? So, like, I noticed that there are folks who, mainly white folks, who
mhm.
are remorseful, like, "Oh, I didn't know he was gonna do all of this. I'm so sorry."
Mm,
Like, I've been seeing this on social media. I was on a call about a few weeks ago, and a white woman joined a call, and it was in support of, like, trans rights, and she is a heterosexual woman, and she wanted to join the call because she wanted to apologize to the community of folks who were on the call. Both trans people and advocates and allies were on this call. And she's like, "I'm just so sorry. What can I do? What can I do to help? I voted for this man. I just didn't know it was going to be this bad, but what can I do to support your community?" Right. And then on the other end, you have people like myself who I have this level of, like, I don't wanna say anger, but
resentment.
just yeah, it's just, and it's to the point I don't wanna be in community with some people, right? If you voted for Trump, or if you know, I just don't wanna be, I don't have the capacity, right? But I also don't wanna walk around here mad all the time and angry, or, wondering if who you voted for, things like that. So I know that's a lot to take on right now in this conversation, but I'm just curious to know, one, again, what are the strategies and tools that people can use, right, or seek out, that are, or may not be able to afford mental health services, And then
Mhm.
also, how can people walk around a little bit more lighter and in terms of this post-election, I mean, we're post-election, but in
Yeah.
terms of just this whole cycle of, I didn't vote for him, and then I did vote for him, and I'm sorry, kind of thing.
So to answer the first question, there are many free resources that are out here. And I think the further we go along with this situation, more people and more programs, more organizations are offering free resources. It's just a matter of finding them. And that's something I actually have put together. I have a sheet of different resources that are offering certain things.
Okay.
And of course, there are, you got to find them in your state, of course. Like for instance, I think I'm going to speak on this a little later, but like as I said, with the organization that we're partnering with in Georgia, we will be offering free resources in Georgia, which we'll get into a little later, as well as I believe Howard University has free therapy as well.
Hmm.
They
Okay.
have free therapy options I have to look more into as well. But there are some programs out here. Hopefully, funding doesn't get cut for these programs, or hopefully they're able to, also one, Taraji P. Henson. I mean, this is more so catered to female students at HBCUs. I'm working with Taraji P. Henson Foundation, the Boris Lawrence Henson Foundation, at Coppin State University, which is my alma mater, where she's
All right.
providing free therapy to HBCU students at Coppin, which is the She Care Wellness Pods, where all we wanted to provide is providing that free therapy because the students need it a lot right now.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
so there are a lot of free resources. It's just a matter of finding them, and it's a matter of being able to have access to them. Now, to answer your second question, so as you were asking the question, I'm sitting here thinking, do I give a professional answer or do I give a personal answer?
No, you do both.
From a personal answer, I'm with you. I don't hold any resentment or anything, but I do feel like you made the decision. You are part of the reason we are here, so deal with it. But
Mm,
as a professional, I will say rally with us as best as possible. Rally. You're seeing the effects now. I mean, I feel like we all saw it coming because it was laid out. It was pretty much this man said what he was going to do. These people said what they were going to do, and now we're actually seeing it. But I will give those people a little grace because they probably thought, because the first term wasn't as bad as this term, it wasn't going to be as bad.
mhm.
It wasn't going to happen. So I'll extend a little grace to them, but I will say rally around it. Try like the person who called in, rally around us, and we get it. You make we all don't make the best decisions. We make in certain moments we make the decisions that we feel are best for us, and that's what a lot of people did. But now they're starting to see how how things have changed. So
Yeah, yeah.
rally with us. Do whatever you can do. Reach out to your local congressman, and try to not get certain things passed. So yeah, that's literally the most you can do right now.
Absolutely. Rally with us, and get out the way, right? Like,
Right.
exactly. Because one of the things that I guess one of the major takeaways that I can say that I appreciated about the woman who joined that call was that she did ask how can she support and help, but also she sat there and listened and learned, because I was on the call actually to listen and learn as well. Like, I wanted to find ways to support trans lives and trans kids, and because I'm foreign to that area, I was like, okay, in order for me to really understand fully, I need to sit in and listen, right? Join a newsletter that sends me information about their lived experiences, because they are truly under attack right now, right? And so same things for white folks, right? If you find that, okay, I don't know a lot about DEI, or I don't know a lot about, right, these anti-DEI bills that are happening, so how about I, sit in,
Edu-
if welcomed, and right, like,
yeah.
let's start there, on an NAACP call, or how do I join, Black Voters Matter, or how can I, get more involved to learn more about, the things that are at stake right now.
Absolutely.
So sit back and listen, right, and be a learner. I think it's important in this period. And then for those of us who are, bracing for impact, um, take a breather, right? And take a moment to step back and say, I don't need to watch the news today, right? I don't need to scroll and see what Shade Room is talking about. I don't need to, you know, immerse myself in group chats that are talking about, did you see this bill happening? Did you see that? Right. Just sometimes you do need to take a step back and just
Yeah.
say, you know what? Let me take a
I'm
deep
big.
breath and just focus on what I can control, because
Mhm.
you can't control what that idiot is doing on, in DC. You can't control what these, Republicans and MAGA cult leaders are doing, right? But
Absolutely.
you can control your emotions. You can control your local, showing up for your local politics, voting, and getting immersed in whatever way you can. And so that's, I'm no licensed therapist, but that's my two
No, you're right.
takes
You're right, and
because
I'm big on filtering. What I mean by that is, even through on Instagram, you can filter it to, put certain words or certain phrases or certain hashtags in for you not to see. So
yeah.
filter what you see, unfollow certain things. You can change up your algorithm for your own page for things that you see. I don't want to see a lot of that. I don't want to hear a lot of it.
Mhm.
I filtered it. Y'all ain't gonna stress me out. Not
That
not
part.
not on my own phone.
That right.
I'm not watching.
Exactly.
I'm not watching the news. If it's something that's
Exactly.
I need to know, I'll find out. I'll know.
Right.
I'm not watching the news. I'm filtering things, certain things I don't want to hear about all the time. When it first happened, we heard so much. It was back to back. It was overwhelming, to say
Mhm.
the. So that's where I learned that I had to filter what I see and what I hear. So definitely create those
For
filters for
sure.
yourself.
What what also I'm really impressed by is that you have kind of fast tracked your way to uh Black ownership. So you own your own, company, and you decide I want to work for myself. But you
Mhm.
didn't just stop there. You decided that you wanted to branch off into entertainment and to a degree of gaming and you created a mental health conversational card game. Can
Yes.
you speak a little bit more about that and what inspired you to create this?
Yes, so I did create a mental health conversational card game. The first edition was last year, and it's called "Hey Friend, are you okay?" The first edition was the Strong Friends edition. That's where the prompts encourage you to check on your strong friends, or check on your friends in general, because sometimes you never know who the strong friend is. But checking on your friends, it has conversational prompts to talk about the things that we don't talk about or things that our friends don't talk about with us, but it gives them that level of comfortability. And the second edition just launched a week ago, and it's the Men's Health Edition. And this edition is more so catered to men's health, which is
Mm,
Men's Health Aware. When Men's Health Week is coming up next month in June, and this fosters the conversations for men who don't feel safe enough to have the conversations, or who don't feel comfortable enough, or there's a stigma when it comes to men and mental health, or men in general just not being able to express themselves or things like that. Um, the idea came from, believe it or not, the idea came from my friends. Last year, my
okay.
friends, my friends be going through some stuff. I mean,
Okay.
rightfully so, it's normal. So the idea came from my friends, and I just decided to let me do this, and this is my way of maybe checking on my friends. Maybe we can play this game one day, and I have friends who experience stuff alone. They don't talk about it because they feel that they might not feel as comfortable. So I make sure, that's why these prompts were created, because it gives you the comfortability, especially if you're sitting in a setting with a circle of your friends, or it's good for that. I've even played them played the first edition at conferences, or not played it, but like asked specific questions at conferences. And the impact that it's had has been amazing. Some and people were in tears at different conferences I've spoken at, just based off of their sharing their challenges and sharing their life, from the prompts. Also, they're good for journaling. Sometimes we don't
Mm.
have prompts to journal. We don't know what to talk about. That they're good. They're definitely good for journaling. And you never realize what they may open up and what they may cause you to write about.
Wow. That's what's up, man. I mean, I think we should maybe do a little example or model it a little bit for the folks that can
Okay.
might be interested in purchasing it.
Okay. So let's go with a few questions from the Men's Health Edition.
Okay.
That's new, this newest edition. So here's one. What, and this question specifically is catered to masculinity, identity, and social pressure. So, what messages did you receive growing up about how men should deal with emotions?
Mm. Now, we're both answering this?
We are.
Or just okay.
We are.
Messages that I received growing up was definitely, um, men are the provider, are the head of the household, and there's no room for, softness
Mhm,
or for, tenderness. So I
mhm,
grew up around a lot of men who lacked tenderness and who lacked the ability to emote, and that's what I picked up as a kid, and so I kind of embodied that, growing up in my teens and even young adult. Um, I'm uprooting that now as in my 30s, but it's been really hard. I remember posting on Instagram a couple years ago. I was like, "Y'all, I haven't cried in 5 years. I don't know what's wrong with me." And it's
mhm,
like, and I'm like, I just can't cry, right? And it was like, but I realized there was just so much built inside of me after so many messages that I received, and my mother and aunts telling me this is, stop all that crying, stop all this,
yeah,
whatever it may be. So you just harden after a
absolutely.
while, right?
Abs-
Um, so yeah, those are some of the messages that I remember visibly.
Yeah, mine, I agree with that. Mine are similar, and mine, I think my messages were more so indirect. It was, I was, you express yourself, or you express yourself through crying, or you express yourself in any way that is not adjacent to masculinity, then
Mhm,
you were called menacing phrases. For me, I was called menacing phrases like, you can't, you're acting like a little bee, or, things like
mm,
that. Crying like a girl, or you whining like this, you're whining like that. So that was an indirect message for me to say, well, as a male, it's not okay to express your emotions. As a male, it's not okay to express yourself. So that was my experience.
mm. Wow.
Yeah. Here's another one. This one is from the stress, anxiety, and mental struggles subtopic. And this one says, how do you know when you're not okay, even if you're functioning?
Ooh,
That one was created because a lot of people, we
that's
have a lot
good.
of functioning people who are dealing with depression and functioning, people who are dealing with so many mental health issues, but we don't realize it because they are functioning very well.
Mm,
And I would say, for my answer, how do I know if I'm dealing with, how do I know if I'm not okay when, even if I'm functioning? My mood, I know that my mood shifted. You feel it. You know your body, and your automatic neural response system will never fail you. Trust your body. So for me, my moods, I might function, but deep down inside, I don't want to do this right now. I don't want to be here right now. I want to be in my bed. I want to do, my mind is elsewhere. So
mhm.
I pay attention to that.
Yeah, I would say, uh, I become irritable, and like I just any just anything, just like I just I could be working out. I'm like, oh, why
Yes.
am I not doing this right? Or and being really hard on myself. Like I
Mhm.
noticed that I become really, really, really um self-critical um and become to and self-doubt.
Yeah.
So those are kind of like some signals for me. Um but this is interesting to have these type of conversations. Now, where do you suggest to have like? Is this going to be deep if you having this at a little kickback or a space party and you bring out these? It's like, oh, now like,
So
how did you envision right these cards to be utilized in like what settings?
So for me, I wanted them to be multi-purpose. Like as I said earlier, journaling, you can use them on your own for journaling. You
Okay.
can use them in a friend setting, but of course you want to this is something that you would have to obviously let your friends know ahead of time. This is what we're doing,
Hmm.
it's a safe space, yada yada yada, X, Y, and Z. So that's something you want to definitely let your friends know ahead of time. If you're not open to it, you don't have to participate, however that looks. Also, I've also used them at conferences, which has been very helpful. Brings about different topics for for the conference. So I think they're I've made them to be multi-purpose for different usage, and I
Okay.
love the idea of journaling with them mostly because that's a way that you can use them on your own.
Yeah.
Or shoot, you feel like your friend's not okay. You feel like something going on with your friends. Pull up and pull these questions out. You don't even got to pull up. Pull these questions out. Ask them.
Mhm,
Ask them
mhm.
the tough questions, or ask them the questions that nobody's asking them.
If you could tell one thing about mental health to a young black man, young black boy, what would it be?
One thing, that it is okay to not be okay.
Mhm.
It is okay to express how you feel. It is okay to, you know, share. You don't have to take it all in alone. And I would respond with, warmth and, more so cultural resonance, because I feel like that's, the how your approach is huge when it comes to young black boys.
Yeah.
Um, I say start small. You don't have to have it all figured out. Even with therapy, if you want to begin therapy, you can start small. You don't have to figure it out.
Mhm.
It's not about being broken. Mental health is not about being broken. It's about giving yourself permission to heal.
Mm.
Giving yourself permission to grow, and also allowing yourself to be supported. And it's okay to be hesitant. So, yeah. And then one last thing I would say, your softness is not weakness. Your softness is sacred. We were never meant to carry the burdens all alone. We deserve to feel, we deserve to rest, and we deserve to heal. And the strength
Mhm.
that we show in surviving or in survival mode is real, but thriving requires a different kind of courage. Um, what I mean by that is thriving requires the courage to ask for help, the courage to be vulnerable, and the courage to choose yourself. And that's not always the easy thing. That's the hardest part, being vulnerable, asking for help. But that's courage. Courage is not always going to be easy.
And what would you share with someone who is trying to support a young black man or black boy, teen, whatever, college age student? Um, what would you share with them on how to support them? Because I know I'll give you an example. I've worked with college age students for the last 10 years of my life. Um, and as you know, because you've worked with college age students as well with your work at Coppin State, black men, young black men are sometimes so hard to get through. And I've sat through so many mediations and had young black boys in my office and trying to just like get them to open up. And then it's like, well, maybe they don't, maybe it's me, maybe they don't want to open up to me. And then I get discouraged. And then it's like, how do I press through? How do you break through? Right. And so, what encouragement would you share, or any tip or advice would you share with a parent, a friend, a guardian, a
Mhm.
college professor or advisor, mentor that is trying to support a young black man who is going through?
I'll say start with a definitely, start with a sympathetic approach.
Hmm.
Because you don't understand what they're going through at the moment. You never know what they're going through outside of where you see them at. Um, Starting with that sympathetic approach and taking and being having the patience, because it's not easy for someone to just open up like that. It's not easy for, as I said earlier, vulnerability is not the easiest thing. It's the most courageous thing, but it's not always the easiest thing. Um, so give them the time, give them the patience, but work with them. So build, because you have to
Hmm.
build that trust with them. You have to build that trust so where they will feel comfortable with opening up. They will feel comfortable with talking to you. And also, I've noticed that a lot of black teenagers, a lot of black men, they want to know that you can relate in some kind of way. They want to
Right.
know that have lived experience and you can relate. And that goes back to what I said earlier with the slight self disclosure. A little bit of self disclosure. And then also, some people are not as trusting because of the trauma that they've dealt with in their past. So they aren't as
Hmm.
trusting. So it's harder for them. And that's going to take some time, some patience, more than anything.
I'm glad you said that. Yes, it takes time building relationship, building rapport, And also even the self-disclosure, sharing that you too have had, right, some challenges and these are the ways that you've overcome. And just one last question, what advice would you give to individuals who are hesitant about seeking therapy or unsure where to start?
If people who are more so hesitant or not sure where to start, I would say just start. And what I mean by that is you can get it wrong, you can get it right. Therapy is, when you first starting, it's not always going to be it might not be exactly what you expect it to be, but just start and start small, ease your way into it. As I said earlier, you don't have to have it figured out to begin. You just have to begin, and you can begin small. um, you can read about therapy. You can watch videos to understand what it looks like, and you can find videos that are catered more to your needs of in therapy. Ask someone you trust. That's another thing. Someone who you may trust that
Mhm.
may have been to therapy, and ask them what's helped them, how they navigate therapy, what has therapy been like for them. And when looking for a therapist, you want to find someone who's culturally affirming, someone who gets you without having to explain your entire existence. So
Yeah.
just starting small overall is the biggest.
I love that, and also starting with looking up safe haven therapy and
There
like
you go.
and seeing how you can support in states like Maryland and Georgia. So how can people keep in contact with you, and what are some upcoming projects that you would like for folks to know?
Definitely. So our website, www.safehaventherapyservices.com. That's where you can sign up. We are also selling the cards on the website, and we'll ship them to
Okay.
you. Um, Our upcoming project is a big one, is our expansion to Georgia. Our launch date will be, I'm sorry, we're opening our virtual doors June 23rd. However, the weekend of June 18th, which Juneteenth weekend, we are partner. I'm sorry, let me rewind a little bit. We are partnering with Vision and UPPC. Sure you're familiar with Bishop Allen. So we are partnering with them, and we're going to join them for their I Elevate conference this year, where at the I Elevate conference, we're going to have a wellness room. We're going to offer free short therapy sessions for people in
Oh,
need, or
love
people who
that.
just feel like they want to come and try and see what therapy is about, things like that. So myself and one of my other therapists will be on site, and we will be offering those services, and also including the wellness room. There will be yoga, there will be meditation and things like that that other people will be offering.
Love that.
So it's going to be fun. And then of course
Yeah.
you got the conference. I'm going to be speaking on some panels, and that's going to be exciting. But overall, we're going to be introducing Safe Haven to Georgia, and the ideal goal, hopefully people will want to take their mental health serious and want to sign up, and want to start the process if they haven't yet, or people may want to continue their wellness journey. And we'll be there waiting for you, open arms.
I love
So
that.
after that, we will be opening our virtual doors June 23rd. And again, to sign up on our website, www.safehaventherapyservices.com. Or you can I know a lot of people reach out to me on my personal Instagram, which is Deshawn L. Harris, DSHAWN L Harris. And then the Safe Haven Instagram page is safehaven_therapy.
Awesome. And so the I is it I Elevate
Yeah,
conference?
correct.
You're going to be doing free sessions on June the 18th?
That'll be June, whatever that Friday and Saturday is. That'll be, I think it's
Okay,
June,
but it's
June
Juneteenth
18th.
weekend.
Correct. June.
Okay,
Yes.
got you.
The conference will be from June 18th from that Wednesday to Sunday. So I'll be doing a few panels on Thursday, I believe. And then Friday, Saturday, we'll be offering the free therapy sessions. And yeah.
That's what's up. Well, you are a busy man, so I do not take your time and your expertise for granted. So thank you for sharing your lunchtime with me. I
Absolutely.
look forward to meeting you in person and maybe even taking on some of those Georgia counseling sessions that is now going to be available June 23rd virtually. So thank you
Yes.
so much. And I look forward to
You.
also purchasing those conversational cards because I think that is very, very much needed and a great tool to use, not only for yourself, but for your community to show that you care about the mental health of the men that surround you. So,
Thank you.
again, thank you so much. And be sure, y'all, to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast and to this YouTube page. And just a quick shout out, I gotta say this because we have had such a wonderful month of just wonderful guests, from Jordan Sumter to
Hey,
Roderick Johnson to also Kevin Dedner and now Deshaun Harris. And so this is not the end. This is just the beginning. So please, please, please send me your feedback. I would love to hear back from you all. Make sure you comment and use my email, MrBigHeadProduction@gmail. I would love to hear back from you. But also, thank you so much to my brother. His belated birthday was yesterday. Happy birthday to my brother Kimon, who is the genius behind all of the branding of Mr. Big Head and my website. I love you so much. Thank you for just pushing me to do this. To also my brother JT, who is like my manager, but also producer from JT Creatives. Thank you so much for all of your love and just your push to do this, because mental health matters for Black men. And we want to continue to spread the word that your mental health is valuable and it matters. We don't want to lose another young Black man. We want to make sure that everyone has the resources they need to thrive. So thank you again from the bottom of my heart to everyone who has subscribed to, if you like, shared, if you watched it, if you haven't watched it yet, I'm still grateful for you and your support. I love you all so much. And remember that Black literacy is Black liberation. Take care.
thank you. Thank you.